Hello, yes, we've been at a press conference where Nigel Farage is announcing that indefinite leave to remain scheme will be scrapped completely under a reform government. He is talking about the Boris wave, as he calls it. Those, he says, millions of people who are coming up to receive indefinite leave to remain in the next few years, people who came here after Brexit. I spoke to Nigel Farage just a few moments ago about the plan in more detail. This is what he had to say.
I'm not sure what the Liberal Democrats do. There are nearly 1 million people over the course of the next few years will qualify for indefinite leave to remain. They're part of the Boris wave shortly after he became Prime Minister. Once they get that status, they can bring dependents. Once they get that status, they can access fully all the welfare benefits in this country. Already, 1 in 6 on universal credit are foreign-born people. This is going to bankrupt us. So what we're saying is people won't get indefinite leave to remain, and that benefits, that welfare should be for UK citizens. Now, the separate debate is we need foreign workers. We need foreign workers. Well, if we do, that's fine. They can come under a special visa, they can work, but they can't bring dependents. They can't be a burden on the system. And actually, by having a proper visa system in Britain, we become like most normal countries around the world. Coming to work should not automatically entitle you to settle and bring your family.
You say they can't bring dependents. I'm talking about the care sector specifically because obviously there is a crisis of workers in the care sector. Lots of the people who are coming here to work in the care sector are women who have children. If you don't allow them to bring their children, how will you get the right number of workers to staff the care sector?
We can't afford it. We can't afford it. If someone comes to work in the care sector and brings children with them, we have to educate them. We have to provide them with healthcare. We can't do it. And it's all the wrong way round. All the questions I get from journalists are, but what about people coming into Britain from abroad? What about people here? What about people here who can't access GP services because of the exploding population? What about people here who are paying their taxes so that benefits can go to those that weren't born in this country? So we're asking for a rethink in terms of how we do this. And you know what? We will find care workers in Britain and from around the world who come without dependents.
You say that. I mean, history shows that often British people don't want to work in the care sector. That is why we are importing care workers from abroad. Are you sure that the British workers will take up the jobs which are vacated by those foreign care workers?
That is because mass unskilled and semi-skilled foreign labour has driven wages down so that the minimum wage becomes the maximum wage. And if people were able to see a benefit to them of coming off welfare payments and going to work, you'd find more people going to work.
You've said that those applying for citizenship would have to wait 7 years rather than the current 5 to be in the UK before they can apply for citizenship. The Conservatives and even Labour are now saying that they would up the number of years it would take to apply for indefinite leave to remain from 5 years to 10 years. To me, it sounds as though your policy is more lax than theirs. Or is there a big difference between citizenship and indefinite leave to remain? And if there is, can you explain what it is?
So neither the Conservative or Labour parties want to deal with the whole area of indefinite leave to remain. So what they're doing is kicking the can down the road in response to what we've said today and over the course of the preceding months. But if you do that, it means there's another 5 years when a load more people come who they themselves in turn could in the years afterwards qualify for indefinite leave to remain. The result of kicking the can down the road is that even more people would come into the country who will not contribute towards the economy at massive cost to us.
So the 7 years before they can get citizenship. Why is it 7 years, and is that different?
Because we're doing 5-year renewable visas. So if you've done your 5 years, you've obeyed the law, you've paid your taxes, and we renew your visa for 5 more years, you've proven that you can be an asset to this country. You can't do it in 5, but you can certainly do it by getting into the second term.
Thank you very much, Nigel Farage.
Well, let's get the lowdown with our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, who, of course, was there and interviewed Nigel Farage as well. Olivia, what are the big takeaways?
So Nigel Farage wanted this press conference to be about the Boris wave, as he calls it. Those are people, mainly not from the EU, who came into Britain after Brexit happened in late 2020, early 2021, who came under what Boris called skilled visas. Now, what Nigel Farage is saying is that actually most of those migrants are working in quite low-skilled jobs, and what he claims, although there isn't yet a government figure to back this up, is that 50% of migrants who will be granted a definite leave to remain in the next few years, those who came over in late 2021, over half of those people are dependents of skilled workers who do not work and perhaps will never work. So what he is saying is that he wants to abolish that indefinite leave to remain altogether. The problem, of course, is that there are some sectors where there are just shortages, where we have to, at the moment, import foreign workers because British workers either are unable because they're not trained properly or unwilling to do those jobs. And in, for example, the care sector, where care workers say there is a real crisis in recruiting and retaining care workers, lots of the workers who come here from abroad are women. They bring their families over here. And the problem for Nigel Farage, as I see it, is that if you stop those workers coming over here with their families, then will you be able to fill those jobs in the care sector? What he says is that British people aren't willing to do those jobs because the market has been flooded by cheap labour, and if you are able to cut out that cheap labour, then the average wage for those jobs will go up. That is his hope, but at the moment what he wants to talk about is abolishing indefinite leave to remain altogether, and polling shows that it would be quite a popular policy. Nigel Farage has made a bit of a thing of these Monday press conferences where he announces some enormous radical policy and usually manages to steal the limelight away from Keir Starmer, who today wanted to be talking about the UK recognising Palestine as a state. So this is another example of Nigel Farage trying to take control of the narrative. He's talked about how reform would tackle illegal migration. Now he's talking about how they would tackle legal migration to the UK.
All right, Olivia Utley, thank you very much. She's GB News' political correspondent.
Well, shall we get some reaction from the Conservative Party now on this latest announcement? Delighted to be joined by the former Conservative MP, Heather Wheeler. Heather, it seems that Nigel Farage is really going for the last sort of 4 or 5 years of Conservative government. The migration taps were turned on in the wake of the pandemic. Lots and lots of people came over, and Nigel Farage is calling it the Boris wave.
Yes, he's great at getting a headline, isn't he? Let's move on to the facts, though, shall we? So we have already changed that you cannot now bring in dependents, particularly if you're at university or something like that. So we know that that's now dissipating and going. We also know that we tried to change the threshold, the cash threshold for jobs to £36,000 per year, so medium salaries. And we couldn't get that through Parliament because of one thing and another. 29,000 is the limit.
Heather, why couldn't you get that through Parliament? You had a majority of 80 MPs. The Conservatives were elected on their largest majority since Margaret Thatcher, and you couldn't get that through Parliament.
Yeah, we have this wonderful thing called the second chamber, the House of Lords, and we do not have a majority in the House of Lords. So let's get back to what else is going on. The issue of, particularly on care homes and things like that, it is absolutely fascinating. As MPs, we all go around, all our old ex-MPs go around our old nursing homes and what have you. And I would be absolutely struck by the nursing homes that have completely local people working in them and other nursing homes that have incredibly few local people working in them. And I think we need to drill down as to why that was happening.
Well, in order to counter that problem, he did come up with the ASSV visa, so the adults, the skills shortage visa. So what that would encompass would be those in areas where there's a shortage, there'd be special visas made for those people. But as you also pointed out in the care sector, there are some care homes with lots of local people and some with people from abroad. So maybe it could be something to do with income, but he's already solved that problem, hasn't he, with the ASSV?
Again, any local MP would always have constituents getting hold of them. I had a wonderful gentleman that came from Guatemala who was a high-class chef, but actually getting into the country and having a salary of potentially more than 36,000 as a first-time entrant was very difficult. His wife was English, and they'd been together 7 years, and he'd worked all over Europe, and then obviously came back to England. So there are real individual issues that you'd have to drill down to. It's great having broad brush strokes. We all love that. But actually, governing is difficult.
OK, well, one of the things they did say was that obviously these are plans, but when they get into government, they'll have a look and see where the land lies. I think that is fair.